Hello everyone and welcome to a crazy game from the 5+1 section of the Speed Chess Championship consolation match. Hans Niemann versus Hikaru Nakamura. Hans lost to Magnus yesterday. It was a pretty crazy fight. Hikaru lost to Alireza, and while Magnus and Alireza will battle it out in the finals, it's time to see who is who is best for third place. And going into this match, Hikaru was leading. I think it was 5-2 in the 5+1 section, and this game is just wow. It's really wild. So let's check it out. Hans with white opens with pawn to e4. We have pawn to e5 by Hikaru, knight f3, knight to c6, and bishop to b5. I had plans of covering the game or games tomorrow, but upon seeing this one, I decided to show it right away. Pawn to a6, Morphy's defense from Hikaru, bishop to a4, and bishop to c5. The deferred classical defense, we have castles and knight g to e7, preparing to bring the knight to g6. And while this can be played, it's I don't know, in my experience it's just very hard to play, so obviously Hikaru has to know it very well. c3, we have knight to g6 and pawn to d4. Hans strikes in the center, bishop to a7 and bishop to e3. Nicely developing, we have castles and knight b to d2, pawn to d6, rook to e1, and now there are some games where bishop to d7 was played, also e captures on d4, h6, all known moves, but here we have king to h8, and it is now as of move 10 that we have a completely new game. So okay, pawn to h3, stopping anything from landing on g4, such as bishops. We have pawn to f6 and bishop to c2. We have knight c to e7, remaneuvering the knight, preparing something like pawn to c6, d5, f5, and so on, and the knight to f1. Hans also looking for better squares for his knight, probably h5 and f5 are the squares. We have pawn to c6 and knight to g3. We have bishop to e6, queen to d2 and queen to c7, just continuing development, connecting rooks. Pawn to h4, preparing pawn to h5, and rook f to d8. We have pawn to h5, knight to f8, and now knight to h4. And it looks like there really isn't all that much the knights can do here, but somehow in these positions you always somehow break through. We have pawn to d5, Hikaru strikes in the center, and pawn to h6, Hans strikes on the king side. We have pawn to g5, and now you could also, well, if you don't want to capture, you could also consider pawn to g6. It was probably the safer choice, but I think Hikaru already wanted Hans to sacrifice on g5, saying that, okay, I'm a very strong defender, I will hold this. And Hans does not back down. He just goes bishop captures on g5, f captures on g5, queen captures on g5, and now knight e to g6, queen to f6 with check, king to g8, and now Hans goes for knight captures on g6. A bit more precise would be e captures on d5, as it would also open up an attack from the bishop to the knight, but knight captures on g6 is also a nice move. H captures with e captures on d5 now, and bishop captures on d5. The reason why it was more precise to do it the other way around, for example, after the e captures on d5, is that if you go bishop captures on d5 now, you just have all of the pieces attacking here, and you can just start capturing. Captures, and captures, and white is just winning here. There's not a good move in sight. So that's why after king g8, knight captures on g6, we have h captures and e captures on d5, similar but not quite the same. Bishop captures on d5, and now rook captures on e5. We have queen to f7, offering a queen trade, and queen to g5. Hans wants to keep the material on the board. And now we have knight to e6 by Hikaru. Knight to h7 would have been a bit better, but it loses the g6 pawn. Probably that's why Hikaru went for knight to e6. With knight to e6, Hans has a couple of options, but capturing on g6 now isn't all that impressive. After bishop captures, you have this nasty bishop to b8 move. So that was probably Hikaru's plan. But after knight to e6, Hans plays rook captures on e6. We have queen captures on e6, and now also one of the nicer moves in the game. Even feel free to pause the video here and try to figure out what I'm talking about. While I give you a couple of seconds. Play the only winning move for Hans. Of course, you guys found it, as you are incredible chess players, but in case some of you just want to enjoy the show, it is bishop to f5. And the reason why you don't capture right away on g6 is because king to h8 and rook to g8 is very annoying. You don't have time for knight f5, just rook g8, and white has no more attack. Even it's black who's winning here. But after bishop to f5, you spoil all of Hikaru's plans, and now he cannot keep the queen on this diagonal. And if he wants to keep control over the g6 pawn to prevent queen captures on g6, he has to play queen to d6, and now bishop captures on g6. But now king to h8, even though it can be played, and it has been played, knight to f5 comes with tempo. The queen has to move, queen to f8, and now rook to e1. Much different than if this rook came to g8. We have rook to d7, trying to keep control over the 7th rank, also preparing to bring the other rook into the game. And now Hans plays knight to e7, and Hikaru goes bishop to b8. It's with rook to d6, he's still very much in the game with queen to f7, f6 in preparation. But after bishop to b8, it seems that even a player of Hikaru's strength can fall victim to back rank issues, as now the rook is no longer controlling the back rank, and Hans just plays knight captures on d5, and Hikaru can pretty much resign here. There were other moves that you could play, like bishop to b1, and it's even considered to be better by the engine, but knight captures on d5 is far cooler. Hikaru played rook captures on d5, and now Hans has a beautiful move. It's the only winning move, but it is enough for Hans, as he found it over the board, and so will you guys, from the comfort of your own home. Feel free to have at it while I give you a couple of seconds. Of course, the move is queen to f6 with check. So first, finding that bishop to f5 move with the light square bishop, and now queen to f6 check. I also added the brilliancy sign. I know people are throwing it around nowadays, but it just looks so nice when you sacrifice the queen. So that's why I included it. And it was in this position on move 34 that Hikaru Nakamura resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. If he, well, okay, you could block, that's obviously silly. It's just checkmate. If you move the king, h7 is checkmate. And if you capture the white queen, then Hans just delivers a nice rook to e8 checkmate, or rather queen will block, and then rook captures on f8 will be checkmate. So yeah, very nicely done by Hans. As he went into the match with well, he started the match with 5-2, then that makes it a 5-3, and he also won one more game. I think they went into recess at 5-4 for Hikaru, and now they're playing 3+1, and then they're also going to play 1+1. So I'm definitely going to show at least one more game from the match before we go into the finals of Magnus versus Alireza. But yeah, this was such a strong performance by Hans with white against Hikaru here. I thought you guys would appreciate it right away. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Frank W.H. Schaefer, Steven Binder, Gautam Bhattacharya, Ren Songkwa, and Joseph Treat for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of this wonderful match until it finishes. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.